Welcome to the All Things Real Estate Podcast with our very own Josh Barker. With more than 20 years of experience and over 5,000 properties sold, Josh brings a unique perspective to the real estate market. Let's get started.
Good morning, Josh.
Good morning, Joey.
Happy November.
Happy November.
Man, Thanksgiving's right around the corner.
Yes, it is.
And I've been staying semi-strict in my diet, trying to prepare for the Armageddon, the gastrointestinal Armageddon that's ahead of me.
All right.
But I'm excited. I love, Thanksgiving is one of my favorite holidays. I know when you're a kid, it's Christmas and stuff like that, but I don't know. There's something about Thanksgiving coming together without the pressure of consumerism. I think that's what it is. Without the utter pressure of, did you get enough gifts?
Yep. Hanging out with the family, enjoying ourselves and eating good food. And you're not worried about if the gift was right.
Yeah. Armageddon starts tomorrow on Black Friday, the day after Thanksgiving, hit the stores. Josh, you've been doing this for 26 years?
Yeah.
It was 99 or 98? When did you get your license?
Well, I got my license in March of 2000, and I started working with Mike Medley in 1999 as like an assistant to him.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. You started off in the mailroom.
I did.
You came all the way up.
Oh,
now
yeah.
You're the CEO.
I was his driver.
Oh, wow.
I would go and drive his clients places and help him with, paperwork and all that stuff. But yeah.
I'm going to have so much fun with that off camera, especially when you, me, and Mike are together. That's going to be awesome.
He still reminds me all the time.
Yeah?
Yeah.
That sounds like Mike. Story checks out.
Yeah. He just looks at me and says, don't forget where you started, the mailroom, right?
Does he? When he does that, you need to have him come into your office and you need to have the chairs lowered a little bit so he has to look up. You remember when you were my driver?
Yeah. Oh yeah. He'll remind me.
Right on. So in 26 years of doing this in Shasta County in Redding, does anything really change, or is it completely different, or is it cyclical? What's
changed?
Yeah. What's real estate? What's changed?
That's an interesting thought. Yeah, it's changed. It's changed a lot. I mean, it depends on what area you want to look at. But I think from a consumer's perspective, it's changed a lot. For those of you that are old enough to remember, there was a time when the internet didn't have houses on it. Mm-hmm. And that's when I started. And we had magazines and newspapers and signs in yards. And, we had a list at the office of homes. And if you wanted to know it was for sale, you came into the office and we went through a book with you of everything that was for sale. And we'd have to go out and show you. I mean, you'd physically have to look at 30, 40 homes because you couldn't see them online. So the only way you would know what they were was to physically go and visit them.
Yeah.
So today's world, it's much more efficient. I mean, buyers are doing most of the pre-qualifying of the home for themselves, right? Deciding what areas and neighborhoods and houses and floor plans and upgrades, et cetera. They're able to make a lot of those decisions with photos.
Yeah.
And then we get involved when they're narrowing it down to 5 or 6 homes they actually want to see.
I tell an extreme story. I had a couple that bought a 1-bedroom, 1-bath apartment in San Francisco in a high-rise that overlooked the bridge. And they bought it brand new. I think they paid $7 for it or something like that. And so then they had kids. So that's not good. It's like a 650 square foot apartment. It was as lavish gets. The entire walls were windows looking out, right? And so they put it up for sale for $1 million. And a guy walks in with his phone and he does this. She'll take it. She was coming in from Hong Kong. And so she, but the world, she's moving and she doesn't have time. And she's just just pan real quick. I just want to see the appliances and the view.
Yep.
And once she saw that, but that's a pretty extreme version. And that was 12 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah. It's been a while since what we call video walkthrough has been going on. And we used to sell, we still do sell homes that way. It's not as common at the moment. They don't have that frenzy, if you will, where you had, expedite everything. But, the other thing that's changed a whole lot too is just the amount of involvement by the agents. I mean, back then, 25, 26 years ago, the agents were heavily involved in their transactions. You had a lot of experience in the business. So you had a very competent agent on the other side of the transaction representing their client. And in theory, you were competent, knew what you were doing, and you solved problems, agent to agent. Mm-hmm. Where today, it's got a lot of layers to it, and I think that's one difference. If you look at contrast to today, you got a newer agent on average often a transaction manager that's not licensed in some cases, doing some things involved in the transaction. And then you've got a buyer maybe that's a first-time home buyer, and so you got a newer agent, an inexperienced transaction manager combined with a new buyer that's never bought a home before, and it's very complicated now. So we're pushing back on that a little bit. I think that we need to get back to a more consultative. Is that the word?
I don't know.
I mean,
language was always my weakest. Like if you wanted to ask me some quick math.
Well, I just think it's important we become really good professional advisors to our clients. I mean, in solving problems. I don't mind having staff assisting with doing paperwork and things, of course, but whenever an agent can make an impact on the outcome, I think they need to be involved.
Yeah. Well, the barrier to entry to get into real estate hasn't necessarily changed in the licensing, but the tools to get it are so much easier. You just meet people who casually get their real estate license and have it like as a side hustle. Versus, I think 20 some odd years ago, you had to get booklets. You have to drive to it. Now everything's like, oh, take this class online, take this prep class online, take the test online. Like it's just.
First of all, I appreciate what you're saying, but I actually think it's about the same. I think the licensing, I think that the degree of difficulty is probably the same as it was 25 years ago. What's different is that 25 years ago, it was brokers with brokerages that were running companies. And so they made decisions on who they were going to hire based on competency, salesmanship, those kinds of things, the ability to serve clients well. And because they were really involved, and brokers are highly involved. And so I think that there was a certain expectation of the quality of the agent was much different then, where now most of these cloud-based brokerages, they'll hire anybody, literally anybody, with very little supervision. In fact, we had the Department of Real Estate up here a month ago doing a presentation, and it was a great presentation. The lady did a fantastic job, but what became very evidently clear is that there's this disconnect between supervision of brokers and the agent right now. A lot of agents don't have help. Yeah. And I'm not blaming it on them. It's not their fault. I mean, it's really the industry itself needs to fix it, where, I think that there should be more responsibility by brokers overseeing the work of their agents. I think it's a hugely important thing that needs to happen.
How's that change? How does that happen?
I don't know. To be honest, I don't know.
NAR has to do, it has to come from the top down.
Well,
right?
I don't think it's NAR that's going to fix that, because you don't have to be a realtor to sell real estate. So I think that the Department of Real Estate in the state of California has to say that there is going to be a higher level of scrutiny on the broker to supervise the activity of their agents. By doing that, you'll likely get a better outcome in terms of the quality of the agent that's in the market. I mean, our industry is changing, and with the advent of AI and other things, I think we're going to be in the next 5 years in a position where we're going to really need to justify the value that we bring. And if you have an agent without a lot of experience paired with staff that's not experienced, paired with a buyer that doesn't know what they're doing, there's not a whole lot of value in that.
No.
So I do think that we're going to need to, have more competent participation of agents in the market in order for the clients to recognize the value that we do bring.
We'll see.
Yeah, I know.
Time's going to tell. I cringed a little bit when you said Department of Real Estate, because I already think our government is too big, too overregulated, and every time they pass something that sounds great, there is always a huge invoice behind it to be like, okay, we're going to have to get new people to do this, and then we're going to.
But this is an area where I'm all for it. I would not hesitate at all to support an effort by the Department of Real Estate. Real estate is a big transaction, and I think it should be taken seriously. I have no problem having a department at the state level that's overseeing activity of agents at a higher level. I think that would be great.
Well,
to be honest.
We'll see. You can keep us posted. Any change, anything that comes down, let us know.
So that's been a change.
Obviously, like you said, the prices have obviously gone up. I mean, inflation's across the board, but housing is it's one of the bigger ones, healthcare, housing, education. Those are the big ones that really.
Yeah, housing's been a challenge. I mean, in terms of, earlier on, 25 years ago kind of thing, interest rates when I first got in the business were almost 9% on FHA. Mm-hmm. The average home was a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 2-car garage, 1,300 square feet, would run $110,000. That same home today is going to sell for 360-ish thousand, 350,000.
Wow.
So in 25 years, it's pretty much tripled, right? And that's
And wages haven't tripled.
no, but interest rates have come down a little bit, right? I mean, they were really low a few years ago. Right now, we're sitting rates around 6.25% or so. So the rates at 9%, that you get a sales price at 110. If those rates had been 6%, that same home could have sold for 150.
Yeah. I remember in the buildup in the early 2000s, there were several subdivisions where they were pre-selling the home and people would buy the home.
Yeah.
And by the time they moved into the home, they had so much equity and interest rates were kind of starting to drop.
Yep.
It was and then that's how a lot of people got really overextended, because then they'd pull the equity and buy another house in the subdivision. They did that thing, and all of a sudden they've got 3 mortgages, and it's great when everything's skyrocketing, but the second it comes down, we all know what happens.
Well, if you think about 2004 and 5, right?
That's what I was referring to.
If you want to go through that journey, 2004 and 5 comes along. What the type of offers that we were receiving, the borrowers were using negative amortization loans.
Yep.
Which was shocking because, we would show them a home over in a subdivision where the average sales price was, $200,000 with a 30-year mortgage. And then they would go to $300,000 with a negative amortization loan. And there was just no way to get them to go back to the $200,000 house when they found out that other loan was available.
Yeah.
And it was disappointing. So in 4 and 5, you had speculation that was 50% of the market. You had
it's crazy.
Really poor mortgages being selected by consumers. And before you know it, you had a massive bubble of assets in the real estate market. By 7, everybody figured out what happened. By 8, there was foreclosures. 2009, massive foreclosures, defaults. And it just continued to crash and crash and crash. I think we gave back between 2006 and 2010 about 40% of value.
Wow.
It was a lot.
That's great for people that rolled in 2010 and 11 to buy.
It is. And, for those who are listening, I just give you that today it's a lot different than it was then. So back then, the average buyer was using a negative amortization loan, meaning that every month they were just making a less than an interest-only payment. And that balance difference was going on the back of the loan. And they were doing that thinking the market would continue to appreciate, which it doesn't always do that.
No.
Whereas today, if you look at the average buyer, they're purchasing with a 30-year fixed mortgage. They're not at risk of their loan resetting. And so if they could afford their home last year, they're likely to afford it today. And so we just don't see those major risks out there.
Are there any, and the other big thing that you said was speculation was 40+%, and usually it's about 10% right now. People buying like a secondary home or flipping a home, or not like, hey, I'm buying a home to live in it. That's what speculation. You're referring to these just like double, triple mortgages, invest.
Well, we don't really know the real number. The actual reported number was 40 to 50% was speculation, meaning that they actually truthfully filled out the purchase contract stating that they would not be occupying the property.
Which a good percentage.
But a large percentage probably were not going to and said they were going to. So that number could have been 50, 60%.
We know it was higher. We know at least one person would have fudged.
Correct.
And said, "Oh, it's my primary residence."
Correct.
So we know it was minimum.
That's right.
Do we know those numbers today? Like how many people say it's their primary mortgage? Is it?
No, we don't have that report, but I can tell you that right now that's where that 40, 50% is coming in, because back then it was looking at 30, 40%. Now you look at it and you go, no, it actually turned out to be 40, 50%.
Gotcha.
And then you look at 2010, which you mentioned briefly, 2010 through 2013, there was this major trough in the market where everybody that was an investor who had good credit and knew that we were at the bottom of the market, they just started buying up assets that had been foreclosed on previously.
Some major national, international level companies whose names are pretty famous did that. They started gobbling up real estate.
They did, yeah. And we had made a pivot in about 2010, 11. I had a decision to make as an owner of a company back then. We had been presented with some different opportunities to take on foreclosures. And I sat down with my wife and I talked about it with her, and I was like, the challenge I have working for the banks is that if we do that and we spend the next 4 or 5 years servicing foreclosures, we're going to get further and further away from our clients, because the bank will be my client until they don't need me anymore. And then, of course, they'll throw us out to the street. And
what?
Yeah.
No.
So then I was like, well, there's still this group of people that want to, sell their home, but they want to do it as a short sale. And if we go that route, it's a lot more work, a lot more time sensitive, and, a lot more, relational issues, because you're working through, divorce, job loss, all kinds of unemployment situations. And it's awful. It's hard to work through them. But we made a decision that we go that route and work with everybody, because then we keep those clients.
Yeah.
And we'll sell them
close to the street.
Yeah. We'll sell those homes for them, and then later, 3-4 years later, when they're ready to go back into the market, we'll have these relationships, right? And then that's the direction we went, and it proved to work well for us. I'm really glad we didn't work with the bank, But a lot of people. I mean, we had to do something, because it was about 60-70% of sales were either foreclosure or short sale.
Wow.
I mean, it was bad.
And right now, it's like every time you report on the numbers, although the foreclosures are going up, they're going up so.
Oh, it's so small.
They're inchworming, and it's not enough to like impact the market.
No, and not to take away from anybody that's going through a hardship like that. I don't want to minimize it, but yes, it's as a collective number, it's much smaller. Again, we had months where I think it was like 70% of sales.
That's crazy.
Were distressed or foreclosed properties. And then finally, you started to see those numbers falling. By 2013, you really started to get a feel for, okay, things are beginning to look up again. In fact, we moved into our office that we're in now, 2013, just anticipating that it was time for us to start getting ready for things to, to start to normalize.
Yeah.
And we had a great run of 13 to 17-ish, 18, where things were, it was a normal market, but it was moving up. Mm-hmm. Interest rates were really competitive, 4.5%, 5% for most of that time. People were, buying homes and seeing a little bit of appreciation year over year. So there was excitement about that. And then unfortunately, of course, we had the Carr Fire that hit.
Yeah.
2018, remember that?
Yes, I do.
And that was a big one. For those who don't know, I mean, that was, I think we lost almost 1,000 homes.
I've always heard like 1,100. I don't know why, but that's always the number that, but whatever.
Yeah, somewhere in there.
Yeah, a lot.
And then of which about only half of them have actually been rebuilt at this point, even today. But that was a spike in the market, if you will, because things started to soften just prior to the Carr Fire, not significantly, but we noticed that the market was slowing down a little bit. And then when Carr Fire hit, I mean, overnight you had 1,000 homes removed from the housing inventory, and certain folks could buy right away, of course, and another group of them, had to wait for insurance to settle before they could decide if they're going to rebuild or sell. But that definitely provided some more stimulus on the buyer side in the market, and kept prices firm, and in some cases appreciate a little bit.
And then we had an incident that shall not be named. And interest rates just went down in the high twos. Yeah,
2019 and 20. Obviously, we can't say it because it's a podcast. They'll flag you if you do. But yeah, that when that happened, interest rates just dropped quickly.
And feeding frenzy.
Yeah, it was
ballistic.
Yep. And then interest rates dropped down to 2.5-3%,
something like that.
You had a huge amount of disruption in the housing market in terms of people were able to, the migration shift was all over the place. Big city people were moving out of that area in numbers that we'd never seen before. It was eating into our housing inventory. Our upper end market in particular really performed extremely well during that period. We've now since then kind of returned back to what we consider to be a more balanced market compared to what it was. But we also did receive some benefit. I've told plenty of people that, we did kind of get on the map as a result of that. People that hadn't thought about our area in the past, they started, we became more known in the state as a result of that, because we had affordable housing. They could work from anywhere. And we had the great outdoors. So, you could buy a home, move up here, and then actually enjoy the outdoors. Whereas if you were in the city locked down, it was a much different feeling.
Yeah, it was quite a boom there were a lot of people moving here.
Yeah.
And there wasn't a lot of inventory, a lot of pressure, interest rates. I mean, it made for everybody was checking the value of their home by the month.
Yeah,
they were watching stocks. You know what I mean? Day trading type stuff.
Yep.
And then it's like you said, it's cooled off, but we're not in a negative market. We're kind of a neutral market. Supply and demand are kind of working with each other versus ballistic, and interest rates did just come down, and they're in the high or the low sixes, you said?
Yeah. So, I mean, the market right now has definitely shifted here locally. I mean, the home pricing has shifted down a little bit. I mean, we're expecting maybe a 2 or 3% adjustment between now and the end of the first quarter of next year. That's normal, by the way. That's not abnormal. You have buyers' participation dropping faster than the inventory
Over the holidays.
And as a result of that, you'll start to see prices softening a little bit. Not for everything, but it's still happening. But if you look bigger picture, for example, I mean, you look at like Austin, Texas, prices are down on average. Zillow will tell you 6%. Boots on the ground there will tell you it's over 10%.
Yeah.
If you go to Florida, same thing. Zillow says it's about 6%, but boots on the ground will tell you it's about 15%.
Yes.
Sacramento region here, just south of Redding here, a couple hours. It'll tell you it's 3 or 4%, but boots on the ground will tell you it's probably 5 to 8%. In terms of how much it's come down price-wise year over year. And so we know we're moving into a market that's softening a little bit. And really what it is that, particularly for the state of California and the Sacramento region, they've built a lot of homes. And some could argue that they maybe have even overbuilt a little bit as a result of, how busy things have been. And buyer participation just isn't pacing with it right now. California, politics aside, we have a pretty big pressure on a particular segment of the population right now too, who was participating in home purchasing, who likely now won't be because of policy shift and things like that, where they're concerned that whether or not they'll be here, And again, I can't say too much more than that because we're on a podcast. But if you take away buyer demand as a result of policy or anything, it does have an impact on the absorption rate, how many homes are sold each month. And we're starting to see that showing up in California right now.
Really? Like in the major areas?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah. I mean, we have a large participation in the state of California from all kind of groups of people, right? And so if one particular group of people are being minimized in terms of their ability to participate in the housing market, it shows up in the number of units sold each month.
Makes total sense.
And we're starting to see that.
Yes, demand goes. What you're saying is demand is going down. Demand's being pinched a little bit.
Yep.
And so if supply doesn't go down with it, then
prices start to soften, and we're starting to see that. Redding doesn't have that same issue just because we didn't have that same amount of people that would be affected by those policy shifts. So Redding is, for the most part, held pretty well. In fact, our softening in the market in the fourth quarter, going into Q1 a little bit, is more, like I said, it's just seasonal. It's more normal. Our inventories aren't spiking. Our buyer demand, if anything, is increasing. And so we're, as the market starts to improve and life changes are occurring. So, right now, Redding is actually performing better than a lot of other places.
So anything on the horizon? I mean, really the only thing could be interest rates. We talked about how if interest rates, as it creeps down a little bit, some of the people that are sitting on a house that they had such a great interest rate, they're like, man, I'd like to upgrade or I'd like to downgrade. You know what I mean? The kids moved off. I want to get a smaller home, or hey, we're having kids. Normally they would just not participate because they're like, I got a 3% interest rate.
Yep.
But as interest rates come down, they'll start to participate. That'll open up inventory, but at the same time, that'll also open up buyers. So
it's an interesting market for that. Right now interest rates are sitting around 6.25%, and you and I have talked about this off the air for sure. Where I suspect that prices will likely have a little bit of a bump in the short term as rates drop from 6.25% down to maybe 5.5%. I think you could see a bump in terms of buyer demand, and not necessarily a lot of inventory to backfill it.
Okay.
But I think once those rates start hitting in that mid 5 to 5% range, that's when you're going to start to see people that currently own a home with a mortgage rate around 3% that are going to be more willing to relinquish that and go get a mortgage now at 5%. So they'll create inventory. Right now, a lot of what we're seeing is it's not so many people selling a home and then moving up, moving down, moving sideways. It's people coming in from out of the area. It's family formation. It's people, their economic situation is improving, and so as a result, they're now able to buy a home. There's a lot of that's going on right now. That's showing in our housing numbers. What we're not really seeing yet is we're not seeing the home where I own a house in a subdivision. I'm going to sell that home and go buy another home. It's happening, but it's not happening at the same level it used to happen at. And that difference is when that participation kicks in, I think it'll have an effect on the sales volume of about 20%.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I can tell you where I come up with that. People go, well, how do you pick that number? If you go back to 2015 and 16, which is important to go back that far because you got to go before the Carr Fire. Mm-hmm. There was about 280 homes that sold in the month of October of 2016. 280 homes. Mm-hmm. This last month, we were at 225, right? Okay. So those two numbers is a delta of about 20%. What did we have in 2016 that we don't have today? We had the move up, the move down, the move sideways buyer.
Gotcha.
Somebody was providing a piece of inventory to the market, and at the same time, they were buying something. And so when those types of transactions come back into the market, sales volumes will jump by about 20%. Prices will actually probably stabilize because you're giving a piece of inventory when you buy a piece of inventory. Does that make sense?
Totally.
And so you're not eating away at the housing supply anymore. So I think that's where I'll be able to see that over the next couple of years. I think we're going to start to see more of that.
Are people leaving Redding? Are we seeing that at all? Are people leaving California?
Not at the same volume we were. That's a good question. I mean, when a few years ago, when a particular person had gotten elected, everybody responded to that at the state level by, I would go on 3 appointments, and I kid you not, 1 to 2 of them were telling me they were leaving the state.
Yeah, I remember.
And I was shocked, and I was like, really? I mean, 1 person and you're going to go? But that's what they were saying. But they were going to destinations where the prices were actually less costly than they were here. So they were buying for less wherever they were going to. Well, that's gone now. They're not. There's no markets that are necessarily more affordable than Redding, right? And so now you don't have that incentive piece anymore. So we're not hearing it for that reason. So no, I think if I were to give you my best guess assessment, I think that the population in terms of Redding's migration out of the area, if anything, it's slowed way down.
Yeah,
way down.
So to recap, over the holidays, we usually see a 2% seasonal decline as buyers just go, hey, I'm going to wait till after Christmas. I don't want to deal with all this. And then if interest rates come down a little bit, we're going to see a small bump. But if it goes under 5.5, that's when you think it's going to free up a lot more people. And we might see as much as a 20% bump in sales.
Yep.
If we get down to the 5 to 5.5%.
Yes, rate. And it won't be because more buyers are going to be participating on their own. It's going to be because you're going to have people relinquishing their mortgage they currently have at 3%, bringing that housing inventory to the market and buying another home.
Yeah. Okay, well, we're going to hold you to it. Yeah. All those got a legion of fans that will write that down, and they will send emails if you're wrong.
Well,
you know what I mean?
Even a clock's right twice a day.
If I heard anything and everything you said, I heard buy Bitcoin. That's everything you said. I heard want, buy Bitcoin, want. So,
well, I was hearing a particular investor at the national level that says recently that he wants to combine Bitcoin with buying real estate. And I'm like, oh man, you're really just trying to touch all of the hot points, aren't you?
Yeah.
So,
and with a tracking fund on Apple.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, thank you, Josh. Thank you. I'll see you in December. I hope you have a happy Thanksgiving, man.
Thanks a lot. Happy Thanksgiving.
If you're enjoying the All Things Real Estate podcast, please feel free to subscribe, rate, and leave a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. That helps others find the show, and we really appreciate it. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll catch you in the next episode.